Welcome to Close the Gap, where we thoughtfully engage with CEOs and top industry leaders all working to close the female equity gap in the C-suite and boardroom. Christine Gannon, the CEO of Brightworks Consulting, and Dr. Antoinette Farmer-Thompson, a senior leader with Arizona State University, host insightful conversations responsible for moving the needle for female participation in the C-suite.
Welcome to Close the Gap. We are thrilled and honored this morning to have with us Dave Adams, and he's a special guest because he's part of our book as well, Constitutional Grit. So we are looking forward to diving in and spending some time with him today. A little bit about Dave. He's the CEO of Michigan Credit Union League. He's based in Michigan. He joined the Michigan Credit Union League in August 1997. And prior to accepting that position, he was CEO of the Washington Credit Union League and LSI for 6 years. He also served on the staff of the Utah Credit Union League for 8 years and the last 3 as president and CEO. He's a native of Utah, and he earned his bachelor's degree in finance from the University of Utah before earning his M.B.A. from Utah State University. During his 37-year credit union career, Dave has held numerous board seats with companies like Magic Line Inc., NYCE Corporations, both ATM companies, and has served on both former Governor Jennifer Granholm's Council of Economic Advisors, as well as Governor Rick Snyder's Council of Labor and Economic Growth. Through CU Solutions Group, Credit Union Solutions Group, an affiliate company servicing credit unions nationwide, Mr. Adams was instrumental in the creation of Invest in America, now called Love My Credit Union Rewards, a program that fueled growth for domestic auto companies and helped increase new vehicle loans for credit unions during and after the financial crisis of 2007 to 2010. This award-winning program helped credit unions add value for members with exclusive member discounts on products and services from GM, Sprint, Intuit, and TracFone, as well as an array of other company offerings. Other recent innovations by Dave and affiliates include the nationally recognized Save to Win, a prize-linked savings program that incentivizes smart savings habits. He's also been instrumental in the investment of respected product brands that help credit unions serve, grow, and remain strong, including Performance Pro, Compease, Cube TV Studios, and Member XP. And last but not least, in 2012, Dave was named the Financial Services Champion by the SBA and received both the Michigan State Award as well as national recognition. Dave, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Dave, let's just start with the obvious. First of all, 37 years, we don't believe it because you're obviously doing the right things. You still look very, very, very young, much younger than some of us who are doing other things every day. So welcome.
Well, I have to say on that one, thanks for getting my day off to a great start. Thank you.
Well, you know, it's obvious to us. The work you do is around financial literacy and credit for the underserved communities, and then providing capital to small businesses. I mean, that's what the credit union world is about. And the performance of Michigan outsurpasses other states. And then lastly, as we know, and Christine will dive into your commitment to gender equity, where did this commitment to equity come from? Like, how did you get this desire to want to serve and to see things so differently?
Well, so first, a little bit about the industry that you touched on, because I think that gives me a passion for doing good. The credit unions are not-for-profit cooperatives in the financial services industry. And so everything about credit unions is about helping people find financial equity and inclusion and progress. And it's people helping people. That's the mantra. So just like in all sectors of our economy, I hope businesses are rediscovering the need to find continued progress around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, right now, racial injustice is at the forefront. But, you know, the fight is far from over to continue finding progress with gender equity and inclusion. And I would say it started for me too late in my career. In some of my writings that you referenced in your excellent book, by the way, Constitutional Grit, I referenced a kind of a self-admission as an older white male CEO that it took me too long to realize that I was unintentionally favoring my male counterparts at golf outings and lunch meetings and so on. And it took a very good friend of mine, a female executive friend of mine, to help me understand that. And that probably tracks with about 10 years ago. As I've said, I don't think I was guilty of anything egregious. I don't think I ever felt like I discriminated against women in any way, but I wasn't as passionate and as aware as I needed to be about the need for mentoring and finding ways to help women be treated equally and be given opportunities for progress.
Your interview in the book that we have shown, I want to pull a couple of pieces from that because I thought your story that you just touched on in terms of the awareness that you had when you realized you weren't inviting women colleagues to lunch or to happy hours or to golf or any of the events that you were doing. And, we found that a lot when we were pulling our research together for the book that you mentioned. When we interviewed men, it's really unconscious in a lot of ways in terms of not thinking, just not even realizing that it's happening. To your point, it's not egregious, it's not intentional. It's just having an aha moment. I didn't include them. So I wanted to read something from your interview that we have in our book. And you say, inclusive mentoring is not just a gender issue. It should be required of all executives and apply to all types of diversity. For all leaders, we need to work harder to institutionalize inclusion in boardrooms, executive teams, and individual departments. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, biases of any kind are so destructive. And right now we're talking about gender bias, but what racial bias, bias against or negativity toward the LGBTQ plus community, biases based on religion or political views. I mean, as a country and certainly organizations, we need to challenge ourselves continuously to look at each other as equals. And so whether it's in boardrooms or management meetings or the way that we as people in management positions mentor or seek opportunities to mentor, we need to check all biases at the door and then go beyond that and say, okay, how can I as a leader within my sphere of influence, how can I create opportunities for people who may not be getting a fair shake if I don't take that proactive step?
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about that because I'd love to hear what you're doing now in terms of developing women. And Dave, I give you a little bit more credit because I understand about the credit union piece and your background. You could be doing anything you want, and to be in the space of credit union is because you have a desire for equity. And so I give you a little bit more credit, and I'll call you after this because I'm doing some CDFI work, but so I understand. So tell us a little bit about what type of mentoring you're doing, and to Christine's point, it doesn't have to be on the golf course, but kind of share with us what you're doing intentionally around developing women.
Well, I think there are internal and external things. Internally, we have an organization relatively small, 140 employees, and about 8 or 9 or 10 management level staff. And we're pretty much evenly divided between men and women. We have some work to get more ethnic diversity in our management ranks. We have some, but not enough. I'm very proud of the progress we've made in the credit union sector. Our 10 largest credit unions, and our large credit unions are pretty good sized organizations of up to 1,000 employees. 4 of the 10 largest credit unions, including our largest Lake Michigan credit union, are now run by women very effectively, I might add. Within our large trade association ranks, the two largest trade associations are the California, Nevada Credit League and the Southwest League, which is Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. Those are both run by women. Lots of progress still to be made, but I think we're making progress. When I think of my own internal organization, it has to do with the decisions I make to make sure that the applicant pool is diverse. That's the key. This is never about, or should never be about, reverse discrimination or quotas or forced change. It's about making sure that when you have openings at all levels of the organization, especially the senior levels, that you're forcing yourself to have a diverse applicant pool and then look to create that diversity. We're also doing what most progressive companies do in terms, I think the table stakes are looking at compensation and structure. And organizationally, we're in very good shape in terms of our female management staff being paid at the same level, or even in many cases higher levels than their male counterparts. Externally, though, is where it gets tougher. As an association, we interface with our credit union community. We have in Michigan about 220 credit unions with 10,000 employees, and nationwide, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 credit unions. And we have an organization that serves credit unions nationally as well. So as leaders, what we speak about, what we write about, which is something I've been trying to do in my articles that you picked up on and which led us to be introduced, I'm really trying to express my opinions and make myself vulnerable. And I think that's important because for me, I was raised like many, probably most of us, with certain religious biases, with certain small town biases. And it took me moving to Seattle for 6 years and Detroit for 23 years to sort of expand my thinking and understand the importance of DEI. And so now it's more about speaking up and having uncomfortable conversations. And then finally, I'll say with our employees, really in the face of the racial tensions in our country, we've done like many companies, and we've started to have, unfortunately, they have to be Zoom calls rather than all staff meetings, but we have regular all staff meetings. We set up a DEI impact team that is leading us through discussions, difficult conversations with ourselves about trying to find a higher common ground on some of these important societal issues, namely DEI and racial justice and gender equity.
Wonderful, thank you.
So those are great points, and they lead into my next question, which again goes back to your interview, because you gave 5 key examples of what leaders could do in your interview, and I want to touch on that for our listeners, because I think they're really key and they're actionable, and they're for executives. And I want to give a little bit of context around this. In terms of your interview, you say we're different, and it's precisely those differences that should require us to seek gender and ethnic diversity at all levels of our organization and ensure that there's an absence of any kind of discrimination. Creating and fostering a culture of inclusion and respect, along with zero tolerance for discrimination, is critical for any company's brand and effectiveness. And you have listed 5 things in your interview that I thought we could share with our listeners. They can read more about it in the book, but the first one is it really is related to 5 things that every male and female executive should consider as a self-assessment to resolve to having broader awareness and more inclusive in mentoring. And I think that's really key. You touched on that a little bit in terms of mentoring and sponsoring women to ensure that there's a pathway. So first you say get rid of excuses. First thing is get rid of excuses. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think we see it. I'll come back to the gender equity, but I'll start with the racial equity and justice issue. We see this being politicized, and we see people maybe fueled by conservative politics saying, I don't get this Black Lives Matter thing. I don't approve of athletes taking a knee during the national anthem. I think it's unpatriotic. I tend to support all lives matter. I tend to support Blue Lives Matter. It's our law enforcement community that is also important. I think those are all examples of excuses for, or to say that violent protests are far worse than other things. I think that we just have a tendency to defend our positions by making excuses instead of trying to listen with empathy and understand what's behind the civil rights movement, and put our biases, political biases, religious biases, whatever it is that's inhibiting us, put them aside and say, look, you can't disagree with a call for more equality and racial justice. So let's get behind that and figure it out. Same thing with gender equity and diversity. It's amazing that the suffrage movement, it's only been 100 years now since women have had the right to vote. And here we are with our first vice president-elect as a woman, and so much progress being made, but it's taken far too long. And we do still have biases against women. And we have to be introspective as men, regardless of our upbringing or what has formed us the way we are. We have to check those biases at the door. We have to put the excuses aside and just acknowledge that not only is it the right thing to do to find complete gender equity and inclusion and provide opportunities for all without bias, but it's also good business, because I think it's well documented that having diversity in the boardroom and in our management ranks and in our organization, it makes us more creative. It makes us more in touch with the customers and consumers and businesses we serve. And so it's good business, and it's the right thing to do, but we have to put those excuses aside.
I think that's fantastic. And I know that we're coming up on time. I can't help but to do two things. One, thank you for your leadership, sincerely. And then two, of course, we see the footballs in the background. Christine, I can't help but to, because I'm trying to think, like, it looks like a Super Bowl football. And I don't remember the Detroit Lions winning the Super Bowl. Okay, so talk to us about the football and the ticket.
I've been fortunate to be able to go to a couple Super Bowls, one of them in Detroit, but you're right, it wasn't our Lions. And I was able to go to a Super Bowl where it wasn't Joe Montana and Jerry Rice playing, but they were at an event. So I have a Super Bowl football signed by Joe Montana and Jerry Rice back there. Wow. But we're still waiting for the Detroit Lions to, let's say, have a winning season, let alone get to the Super Bowl.
Keep hope alive, Dave. Keep hope alive.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah, Christine loves San Francisco.
Yes.
Joe Montana, I think.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, quite a legacy.
Right? Absolutely. And you as well, Dave. We have really enjoyed our time with you today. Thank you so much. We'd love to leave our listeners with a way to find you. How can they connect with you?
Probably the easiest way is to find me through my organization, either the Michigan Credit Union League, which is MCUL.org, or CU Solutions Group. Easy to find if you Google it online, and you'll find your way to my leadership bio and my contact information. And let me reciprocate by thanking both of you for your good work, shining the light on these important issues and helping us all think more deeply and be better at influencing progress on all fronts with regard to diversity, equity, inclusion. It's impressive, and I'm honored to have been a part of your work.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Enjoy your day.
And your holiday.
Yes.
Thank you very much. You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. You can find more information and connect with Christine or Tony at www.tffei.org or on LinkedIn at the Foundation for Female Equity and Inclusion.